Hi, good morning. Before this next talk, Fabien has hijacked my presentation because we've received from a customer this year a video that we would like to show you. We received something similar last year from a partner in the US called Open Source Integrator. This year it's a customer that sent it to us without solicitation. I would like to show it to you, and by the way, we think it's really interesting to have this kind of video during big talks, so if you want to take inspiration to send us something next year, be my guest. Comme tu me feras signe quand le micro est on. All right, thank you. Back to our regular programming. So today I will be speaking about electronic signatures and the eternal questions that we all get from customers and even from partners from time to time. Are they legal? And I'm here to tell you all to relax a little bit, and I'll try to show you the thought process that you can use, the speech that you can use to convince your customers that, yeah, okay, stop worrying about this, this is legal. And a little bit about me, just to show you that I'm not some random guy found in the street. I've been working at Odoo for 5 years now. I've been working in development. I've been working at professional services, technical support, migrations. And today I would like to take that expertise, that the amount of questions we received for the legality of sign to react on that and to give you this information. But first, before we dive into the matter, let's have a few definitions set up straight so that we know what we're talking about. And let's begin with the basics. What is a signature, like the classic handwritten one? It's, it's a handwritten mark or note that is a depiction of your name, and that will mark your intent and your identity on a document. And this last part is really what is interesting in that regard. We want a mark of identity and intent with the goal of the document that you are signing. And so, for example, if you receive on your desk something with these little scribbles at the bottom, you might have a really good deal with the late Steve Jobs, or with Mark Wahlberg, or with John Hancock, which is a signatory of the Declaration, not the Declaration of Independence, but the Constitution of the United States. Of course, normally you won't get this anymore, but who knows? And already I'd like to illustrate how weird this system is and how weird it is that we all take this as the golden standard, because I've just been fooling you for 12 seconds. This is absolutely not Steve Jobs but Tim Cook, and it's absolutely not Mark Wahlberg but Mark Zuckerberg. And we take this as granted because we have been using signatures like this for hundreds of years. We usually know who is signing the document in front of us, because this is something that we do a lot of the time together. We have the feeling that it's difficult to forge this signature. I'm not so sure it is, but we have this feeling that, oh no, I will be able to recognize if it's not the person that I wanted to sign who signed it. And this is important, actually, there is quite a strong legal deterrent for forgeries of signature. I think in the US it can go from 2 to 10 years of prison, and depending on the document, and quite a few $1,000s of fine. So for all these reasons, we have a tendency as a culture to trust ink signatures, even though when you think for 2 seconds about it, it's really not that strong of a proof of intent and identity. And now, to switch to something a little bit more modern, what is an electronic signature? And in this case, we have to differentiate two concepts that get mixed up together quite a lot of the time. An electronic signature is just some electronic data that is associated with some other electronic data, and that will be used as a mark of as a signature, so as a mark of identity and intent. This definition covers a lot of stuff that we don't usually see as a signature, such as a checkbox. Even a simple online form can be considered as an electronic signature. The name at the end of the emails you sent, it's a signature. It is. It can be recognized as one by the law if you go to court. And there are a lot of examples. For example, if you sign your bank, they want you to sign something, they send it to you by email, you print it, you sign it, you scan it, you send it back. we all think it's normal, but it's actually an electronic signature. And electronic signatures date back to quite a lot of time because they were legally accepted even by telegraph back in the early 20th century. So it's not a new concept. There's another concept, however, that we should not mix them with, is the digital signature. A digital signature, it's usually something that uses mathematics or cryptography to both show the identity of the person who signed it and to show that the document itself hasn't been tampered with, that the integrity of the document and the signature is still fine. Examples of this usually include either a certificate system that you can find online or a device-based system, such as in Belgium we have identity cards with certificates on them that you can use to sign documents. Even online we can submit our tax reports, and this is a digital signature. At Odoo, we will only do electronic signature and not digital signature. And I'll explain why in a minute, because actually it's not really needed to do more than that. But for some of these reasons, we have the feeling that electronic signature should not be trusted. It's quite new. We have the feeling that it's quite new, even though it's not. Sometimes you send documents to people you don't know and have never met, so you don't have this trust relation that you usually have when you sign something with someone. And we have the feeling that it's really easy to pretend that you're someone else, because on the internet no one knows that you're a dog, for example. And for all these reasons, we don't trust electronic signatures a lot. Okay, so we have our basic definitions. Now I'm going to ask a few advices from my junior legal advisor. He's been helping me prepare this talk since 2 weeks. What are the legal aspects in the United States and in Europe of these electronic signature? I'll begin with Europe. Europe passed a directive, I think it was updated 5 years ago now, which is called the eIDAS Directive, which concerns electronic signature and identification. And in Europe, we recognize 3 levels of electronic signatures. The first one is the most basic one. It's what I've just been talking about, the electronic signature. So it might be a checkbox, the name at the end of your email, whatever. The second one is called the advanced electronic signature, and it uses, even though the law, the directive is quite technologically quiet or mute, it doesn't impose any technology. The most implemented solution for advanced electronic signature is the PKI, so public key infrastructure, where each signer has a key, a cryptographic key that it will use to sign the document, sometimes with a password or a PIN. And finally, we have the third level, which is the qualified electronic signature. It's basically the same thing as the advanced electronic signature, but in addition to having to know a password or a PIN code, you also have to have some kind of device that has been approved for this use, such as a smart card or some kind of USB key that is tied to your person. But the most interesting part of this directive is the first paragraph of the 25th article, which says that an electronic signature shall not be denied legal effect in court on the ground that it is in an electronic form, which literally, and there is no ambiguity about this phrase, means that whatever form of electronic signature you have, you can use it in court to support your case, whatever your case may be. Of course, it doesn't mean that any signature will be automatically recognized. You still have to bring supporting evidence about this electronic data, but still, no signature can be rejected on the simple ground that it's electronic. And I think that's really the crux of the issue here, that we have this feeling that no one will want to admit that my checkbox or that my scribble on a screen is legal. Well, here you have it black and white, it is. In the US, it's something a little bit similar, even though it was done quite earlier. I think the legislation is from the early 2000s. It's called the eSign Act. And it gives 5 criteria that you need to meet for an electronic signature to be admissible in court. The first one is that there need to be an intent to sign, and by intent, usually we mean that the person who's signing has also the choice not to sign. Otherwise, you don't have a free will, if you want. It could be called free will. There need to be a consent to do business electronically, which usually means that if the customer or if the person who wants to sign this document wants to do it in a paper form, with an ink signature, they should have that choice. Perhaps you can mail it to them via snail mail or something similar, but you need to give them this choice. You need a clear signature attribution. This is, of course, the most difficult part to prove very easily. What we will do in Odoo and in most online signature systems is that we will add metadata to these signature events so that you can bring supporting evidence in court to have this clear attribution. You need to have a clear and unique association of the signature with the record, which means that you need to make sure that the signature cannot be moved to another record. And finally, you need to keep this record and this data in your system. And this is mostly the basis with which you can convince your customers that this signature is perfectly legal, that you can use it for business documents. And that's what we do in Odoo Sign, and that's what I said earlier, that we only do simple electronic signatures, because for most business cases, it's completely and utterly sufficient. You don't need more than that. You don't need certificates. You don't need anything like this, because you have the law with you, and you have the metadata that we'll show in a second to support your case. Some cases still need more than this, typically something that you would do in front of a notary, like real estate sales, like last will and testament, stuff like this. But for most business cases, this is entirely sufficient. Regarding the metadata that we keep, there is just one thing that can change in Odoo depending on what you choose to do. If you know who the person who's supposed to sign is, then you will send a specific signature request to someone, and in that case, we will have more metadata because we know who's the intended target of the signature. And there is also the concept of a public signature request in Odoo where you can broadcast a document so that anybody with the link can sign it and get a copy of it. And in that case, you will have a little less traceability. What do we keep as metadata in our system to give you supporting evidence? Well, we will log the 3 main operations that can happen on the document: creation, a signature event itself, and any access by someone in the system or outside the system. And the metadata we keep about these operations include the IP, the timestamp, of course, the geolocation, either via using geo-IP for creation and access, and for the signature event, we use the geolocation API from the browser, so it can be really, really precise, up to 3 meters if you have a GPS included in the device. We have also validation of the email. If the request was sent to a specific person, to a specific email, the link itself will be unique to that email address, and when the user clicks on it, we will be able to tell, okay, he received the email, so we know at least that the email address exists, which can be quite interesting as supporting evidence. And the last one, and I think it's really important, especially here in Europe, we can do 2-factor authentication using SMSs that we will send to a number. And this is actually quite strong in Europe, because in Europe, all phone numbers are tied to a specific identity. You cannot have an anonymous phone number. So if you use this system, you can have quite a lot of information about who signed it, when, where they were, what device they use, address, stuff like this. We send this report when the document is signed to everybody who was participating in it. Not all the information is included all the time. We don't want to leak your phone number or your geolocation to the other signers, but in the system we have it. So if you need to get it out of the system for a court case, you can, it's there. And with this system where we send this signature, where we basically combine all the data with the signature, then make a hash of this, and we have a chain of events that cannot be broken without having the system detects it automatically, I think we have quite a strong case to reassure users and signers that this document is in fact legal, and that they can use it if they need to prove that the agreement is valid. So, are they legal? I think that's the question that we need to ask, and that's the question we get a lot. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is yes, they are. And the longest answer is this talk. There's a lot of resource on the internet that I will put in the slides when they get uploaded later on. It depends, of course, on the type of document you want to sign, but for most business cases, it should be enough nearly all the time. That's it. Thank you very much.